I wonder if I met any of my New Year resolutions. I know I did a video, like in January, talking about them. Let me just see if I'm actually successful for once in my life.
The first one is get a boyfriend. Hasn't happened.
Well, I'm depressed. Instead of reacting to my New Year resolutions video, we're gonna do a tier ranking. And boom, here we are. Magic of editing. This is my first tier ranking ever. Took me forever just to find the right website to do it on. This website is called Tier Maker, and it's like, oh, in order to use our website, you have to log in with your Twitter handle. I don't have a Twitter. Do you think I want to be part of any of the toxicity of Twitter? But here we are. I think I read about 56 books this year, including my DNFs, but not including rereads. I only reread one book this year. It was Lost Boys by Christina Henry. Still a 5 stars though. Here is all of them. How am I gonna... This is gonna be so many mini reviews in just one go. I'm excited yet terrified. I have up here S through D rank, like S is 5 star, A 4 star, B 3 stars, and then at the very bottom we have the DNF category. And I'm just gonna pick from these randomly. First off, we have Tokyo Ever After. Now, generally, I am not a contemporary fan, but this one was very cute and very funny. It was about Japan, which is like the best place ever. I really want to go there so bad. It's a classic Cinderella story. Girl realizes she's from royalty. She has to go to the castle. She has to learn how to be a princess, and she just can't handle it. Too much pressure, and she doesn't feel like she belongs anywhere. She doesn't feel like she belongs in America. She doesn't feel like she belongs in Japan. My favorite part about this book was the humor, though. Because with contemporaries, what's really important to me is the voice of the contemporary. Because generally not much plot-wise is happening, so our main character better be awesome. And this girl really was funny. I do think it hits like all the classic, you know, general contemporary tropes. Oh, you fall in love with the boy. Some third act conflict happens. You get separated from the boy. You guys get back together. It hits all the familiar beats in a unique way. So for that, it's going into the B category. Next up, we got One by One by Ruth Ware. This one, it has a special place in my heart, so it's going to go into S tier. Why? Because I have never liked a Ruth Ware book before, so this one was actually really good. Like 10 or so strangers stuck in an avalanche in a cabin, and people dropping like flies all over the place. It's murder, it's madness. I was having so much fun. It was a very good thriller in the way that it made me feel cold. Like I could feel the pervasive chill of the ice seeping through the window panes. It was a good one. And it ended in an epic ski chase down a mountain with an avalanche chasing the skiers. It was a thrill ride, and I was having so much fun reading it. And you know, while we're on the topic of Ruth Ware, I also have Woman in Cabin 10 on this list somewhere if I can find it. There it is. This one was a DNF. I know this is like her most popular book, one of Ruth Ware's most popular books, and I DNF'd it, but I was so certain I knew who the villain was that I like Googled the spoilers, and yeah, sure enough, I knew who the bad guy was. So I'm like, well, why should I stick around? So I DNF'd it. I'm sure it's a lovely book. Sometimes I'm just too smart to enjoy anything. It's a blessing and a curse. Next up, we're gonna do The Lies of Locke Lamora. Yes, that is going right in the S tier. I know without a doubt that is my favorite book of 2021. Oh my gosh. It has the best friend bonds. Like, not best friend bonds, the best friend bonds. I loved every single character in this book. I loved the heroes. I loved the enemies. I loved the danger, the magical elements, the world building. And I almost DNF'd this book. Almost. Because it's about a heist. We're a gang of thieves, and there is a lot of preparation going into this heist. So like the first 200 pages are the planning and the scheming. It's just talking and some flashbacks. So I'm like, when's the action gonna happen? It literally felt like going up a hill, but you know, the higher the hill, the more epic going down the hill is. This book was fantastic, and I cannot recommend it enough. 5 stars. Followed by that, we have another 5 stars. Gonna put that one right in front of One by One. Finale by Stephanie Garber. Oh my gosh. That is book 3 of the Caraval series. Maybe I should just go ahead and rank a series all together real quick. Okay, I'll save that one for later. Where's the first book? Yeah, I read the whole trilogy plus the new spin-off series book that came out this year. Here she is. So, Caraval. I went ahead like an idiot and bought the whole trilogy, like without even knowing if I liked the first book. I did not like the first book, so it's going right in the C tier. Scarlet as a person just annoyed me. She has a ability where she interprets things through colors, which is cool. Like, everybody's voice has a certain color associated with it. But when every single descriptor in a paragraph is something about a color, it gets old very, very fast. And that's the least of my concerns, or the least of my gripes with this book. This is about our trio going to the magical Caraval, like this big magical carnival. And instead of it being, the circusy stuff that I wanted, it was more of a scavenger hunt. Scavenger hunts are basically quests to me, and I hate quest. I hate let's find the item or person things. Not my jam. There is a sister in this book called Donatella, and Caraval makes her out as the most selfish thing, and I hated her. However, Donatella is the protagonist in the second book, Legendary, and that book is going right in the A tier. No longer are we in Scarlet's point of view like we were in Caraval. Now we're in Donatella, and she was an awesome character. Like, this was fantastic. And because we were no longer in Scarlet's point of view, and I wasn't like distracted by all the overly descriptive colors, it made me realize just how beautiful Stephanie Garber's writing is. It's very magical. You get swept sucked into this world. And the love triangle, girl, Donatella, Dante, and Jax. Oh, I am jealous. I am not a fictional woman. I gave this book a 4.5. The only reason. So in this book, Scarlet is still in it, and Scarlet, she's having some guy troubles. She's only been with this one person, while she was kind of engaged to be with another person, someone she never met. But now in Legendary, she's having some issues, and I don't know if it's actually in Legendary or if it bleeds in the finale, but Scarlet at one point is like, I'm gonna have my two lovers, the one I actually certainly without a doubt love, and the random guy I've only exchanged letters with, I'm gonna have them compete for my hand in marriage. And Donatella, sensible girl, is like, why the heck would you do that? You know you love boy A. And Scarlet's like, well, how do I really know if I have nothing to compare him to? So dumb. Just Scarlet. Like, every bad thing in this series is Scarlet related. But finale. It redeemed Scarlet to me. That's why this book is like beyond a 5 stars. It redeemed someone I despised. And whenever I was reading the book and I was like, oh, this book is so good, but it would be better if this happened, it would happen like pages later. It's like we were connected through the soul or something. I love this series. And so that's the main trilogy, but then it goes into a spin-off series called, well, I don't know what the spin-off series is called, but the first book is called Once Upon a Broken Heart, which is going into D tier. I am hoping that this trilogy, this new series, is gonna follow the pattern of the Caraval series, which is me not liking the first book but loving the later books. Because this one, it has a whole new cast. Like, we see the characters from the other series, but they're very minor. Even the most prominent main character from the old series, Jax, he's in this new series now, but it doesn't seem like he wants to be here. He's like a washed out version of himself in this book, and it breaks my heart because he is just like, he's so colorful with his personality in the original trilogy. I love him so much. He made me swoon, y'all. Jax for life. Like Apple Jax. I just made that connection. I love that cereal. And Jax is always eating an apple. That's why it's funny to me. I freaked out for a second because I looked at me like filming, and the red recording button is going, but when I turned my head and looked back, I saw the big red button like blinking on my forehead, and I thought someone was sniping me for a second. Anyways, Once Upon a Broken Heart has a new character. I cannot remember her name. She did not have a personality to me. She was just nice and helpful, and that was really it. That's not a personality. That's just like a default human, in my opinion. Even Scarlet was like fussy and sisterly and caring. Like, she had a bit more to her and was very family oriented. I actually don't remember what the deal with this girl's family was. She's orphaned, yeah. I don't think she really got to know her parents that well. Or maybe she did. See, her story didn't really stick with me. But I have high hopes for the remainder of the series, even though I did not like the first one. But now we're gonna go to The Other Emily by Dean Koontz. Okay, right to D tier. When I was like going through the books I read, like I made a little list and I saw this book title, I'm like, what is this book? I don't remember reading this, but as soon as I looked up the cover, immediately I had like war flashbacks. It was bad because I hated this book. It is so out there. Like, I have a whole dedicated review to it. The plot is so outlandish and it does not make sense. I thought it was a thriller. It's my fault for not looking up the genre of this book, but no, it's a sci-fi, and you need to remember that because the sci-fi is mentioned this much, but at the end, that little bit of sci-fi mattered a whole lot, and we were not told enough about it. Our main character, he was just really obsessive about this old love of his to very unhealthy degrees. He wasn't a good person either. The people in this book were just so weird. There's this one jerk. Like, you would read him and, like, you just want him to die. Like, he is awful. He just, like, casually admits to sexually assaulting a woman, by the way, who was, like, comatose. Like, she couldn't do anything. It had scummy characters, including the main character. I remember it had a saying. Like, our main guy was interviewing a girl, and he said she looked as serious as a sex doll. I do not understand what that means. Is that she actually looks serious, or she doesn't? I have seen 2 sex dolls in my life, all on TV, and they always look kind of angry. So I don't know what he's trying to say with that. So that honestly was just like a really bad book. Next up, we got The Book Thief. If you know anything about me, you know I do not like historical fiction. I read this because I can't remember what the app is called, but it's an app that's like, oh, if you like this, you'll like this. And it recommended this to me, and I read it, and it was good. Like, I don't like historical fiction, but this one, it made me feel, which is always important. I'm going to put that in front of Once Upon a Tokyo Ever After. The Book Thief, you know, is back in the World Wars, people punching each other, just being jerks. And this girl ends up with a Jew in her basement, you know, not a good situation to be in, but good for you for having a Jew in your basement. Yes, keep him safe. Read him stories, give him snuggles. But also, oh my gosh, she might die. I really liked how, I haven't read a lot of historical fiction from Germany's point of view. It's always people running away from Germany. These were German people who were totally against what Hitler was doing. So I liked seeing that perspective. I liked seeing the townsfolk, like the people who were against it and for Hitler. I liked how they were coping with life, and how some people were like, oh, this is the best thing ever, but it was so clear how they were suffering too. I liked the character deaths, like his whole thing. I liked how he was kind of jolly but also really scary at the same time. And our friendly Jew who's in the basement, he makes a book to give to our little girl, and I loved seeing the illustrations through that. It was a good, very sad book to read. I'd give it a B+. Next up, we have The Doll Factory, which is going D tier. It was an interesting thriller set, you know, industrial age of England. We have these 2 characters. One is a girl, she works just as a doll maker. She has a deformed collarbone, so her shoulder like kind of goes higher than the other. And because of that, people are like, oh no, ew, get away from me, demon. But she has these aspirations. She wants to be an artist. She wants to get a boyfriend. You cannot contain her. Meanwhile, our other perspective, our other point of view character, cannot remember his name. I think it's Silas. I'm probably wrong. He is nuts. He's at, like, he taxidermies dead things. Hopefully dead things. It'll be awful if you taxidermy something alive. But he's obsessed with, like, preserving the dead because then they're his. Like, ooh, I made this. And he likes, like, oddities. He likes those dogs that have, like, 2 heads, and he likes keeping their skeletons. So he sees this girl who has, like, a weird collarbone. He's like, oh, baby, yes, I want that. And I'm like, ooh, okay, this is creepy. However, what really, like, made this book like go down from like a 5-star to me and all the way to like a 1 or 2 star is that these characters like never interact with each other until like the last 10 or 20 pages. Like, he's obsessed with her, she doesn't know he even exists, and they're ships in the night. It just takes all that could have been there away. And most of this book then is just dedicated to our girl getting like lessons from art from her new boyfriend. The good boyfriend, he has a pet wombat, which is amazing all on its own. Next up, we have V.E. Schwab's Extraordinary Volume 0. So this is the first time I picked a graphic novel like ever to read. I spent like 99 cents on it. I read it. It was like 6 pages long, and I was like, is that it? I guess it's just a prologue. So I don't know how to rate it. Like, I haven't read any of the other books in this series, so I guess it didn't capture my attention, even though it is by V.E. Schwab, and I love V.E. Schwab. So I don't really know how to rate a graphic novel. This is why I just read all my graphic novels on Webtoons. They're free, and they're not just 6 pages long. So it's gonna stay in D tier. Not because it's bad, I just don't know what to do with it. Next up, Final Girls by Riley Sager. Yes, a B tier, my love. You get up there. I think this is like Riley Sager's most famous book. I love Riley Sager. He's my favorite thriller author. And this one, that's the one I was the most hyped to get to. 3 girls, each the survivor of her own horrible massacre. The newspapers collectively call them the Final Girls. But now it seems like someone is hunting down the final girls. One of the 3 girls has been found dead, and it's pretty clear someone is coming for the other 2. Fantastic. Loved it. Main complaint, though, is that our main character girl, she does not remember her massacre event really well. There's a lot of gaps, and eventually towards the end of the book, we do, like, remember fully what happened, but the way the book is written, it's like in weird like time skips, like flashes. It's memory flashes, so it's kind of disjointed memories, and it just didn't give me that really satisfied feel. I still felt like so much was missing from that. If it was just written as one consecutive scene instead of like pop, 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 like paragraph here, break, paragraph here, break, switch settings, switch characters, like I think it would have been a much better flow. And I did not guess at all like who the villain was. Like it kind of blew me away. Like, wow. Next up, we have Rage of Dragons. Originally, I just gave this book a 3 stars because our main characters at times could be so dumb. I did not like the side, I was about to say the side chick, whoops. No, the main character girl, the love interest. I did not like her at all, but I am going to put this one at A tier because I've been like thinking back fondly on it recently. Like, even though it's called Rage of Dragons, I didn't feel like the dragons like played a really prominent part, so that also bummed me out. And again, our main character, I think his name was Tao, I don't know, T-A-U, Tao, I don't know. He was so stupid at times, but he definitely had character growth, and it was very good. And I loved the training that he undertook in this book, because he started off not wanting to be a fighter, a warrior at all. He was like, how can I cripple myself so I don't join the army? Like, wow, man, yes, make the system work in your favor. I don't know. But circumstances forces him to, you know, be a warrior, and he becomes the best warrior ever. Like, fearsome. And it made perfect sense why. I loved how he became like tough as he is. I haven't read the second book yet, but I am very interested. I think another thing I didn't like in this book was just like the bonds between characters, because like one of the things that sets Tao off on his journey is a death of someone he loves. But were we really around that character enough to make me love him and feel sad that he's dead now? No, I did not care for his revenge really, except for the fights that would happen when that revenge was trying to be taken. There was one character in this book, one of the many characters Tao is trying to get revenge on, and he just does not know Tao at all. He's like, why are you following me? Who are you? And I was like, my name is Indigo Montoya. You killed my father, prepare to die. And the other guy's like, I don't know you. So I do need to reread this book. It was very good. One of my most recent reads is The Therapist by B.A. Paris. Gonna put that right there. If you know me, B.A. Paris wrote a fantastic book called Behind Closed Doors. Loved it. And I've read other books from her. This one, let's see. Yeah, I read 4 of her books. This is my 3rd favorite. So second to last. I mean, I gave it a 4-star. It's very character driven. A girl moves with her boyfriend into a new house without knowing that the previous, owners of the house were brutally murdered there. And her boyfriend kept that secret from her, so she's not happy about that. But she becomes really invested on knowing more about the lady, the therapist who lived in the house before her. I like that it was like a close-knit neighbor type of book, like, oh, everyone like knows each other, but everyone has their own little secrets. I like getting to know all those people, and even though the really thriller parts of the book, for the majority of it, was just like, oh, I think someone's in my house, which is more of like a spooky haunted house vibe rather than a thriller to me, until like the plot twist happened. That wasn't enough to keep me thrilled, but when the twist happened, I was thrilled. So if you're interested in a character read and a really like sympathetic character you'll feel sorry for and want to cheer on, this is a good one. Not too scary, but still good. Next we have Ready Player 2. Okay, so my heart says C, but I'm also like B. Okay, it's gonna be a high C. High C. It's so obvious this book is just another cash grab. What you gotta know about me and Ready Player 1 is that I know nothing about the 80s. Nada. I didn't get any of the references, but I still greatly enjoyed Ready Player 1. However, Ready Player 2, with all the quests in this book, the quest, like we have a new, oh, we have to do 7 or 9 missions to unlock this new thing that's introduced into the Oasis. But all the quests to achieve that were really, really boring to me. The only one that was kind of cool was the Lord of the Rings quest, but that happened at the very end and it was rushed, man. I'm like, you have the most expensive fantasy world at your fingertips and you're just rushing through it. But no, you also devoted 50 pages of a quest devoted to battling Prince. I gotta say, I'm not a Lord of the Rings fan, but I would prioritize this over Prince. But that's just me. Do I have good taste in music? I don't know. Characters from the first book would appear very briefly, and you're just like, why are you here? Why did you do that? Did you just want to say hi and now you're gone? One of the characters, I cannot remember her name. It's not Artemis, it's the other girl. H. She was cool in the first book. Like, she was snarky. But now in the second book, she has these like really cheesy one-liners that just like makes me groan every time I read them. But the villain in this book, he was the saving grace. He was hilarious. He was so peppy, and like whenever he was on the scene, I always imagined him like dancing as he's given like his little villain monologue. I loved him. Cannot recommend him enough. But otherwise, it was just a very boring book to me. Next we have Born, which is a very weird book. Like, I enjoyed the first half of it, but you know, it's like an apocalyptic world that's kind of being tormented by a giant flying bear. And also there's evil corporations and drugs. I mean, that's all cool stuff. And then our main character girl, she finds this little slug lump of flesh thing, and she's like, I will take this home and raise it as my child. And yeah, it turns out this lump of flesh thing is actually sentient life, and its name is Born. So I like the parts where the main character girl was raising Born, but this book was just a little too crazy for me. Like, there's a lot of things that happen in this book, and I don't understand any of it. So maybe that's my fault for being dumb, or maybe this book was just bad at explaining. Like, I'm pretty sure someone came out as a fish person in this book, but I don't really know, and that confuses me. So it's going into C. Next up, we have another DNF, and it's Year 1 by Nora Roberts. So it sounds like an interesting premise. There's a great pandemic in the world. Oh boy, aren't we sick of that, folks? And it kills basically everyone. But those who are immune to it acquire magical abilities. Now this is magic, fantasy, in an urban setting. I thought that would be cool, but to me it never really meshed well. And also, if I remember right, there were multiple main characters in this book, but there was one girl who was driving me crazy though. She's the person on the like stereotypical apocalypse team who is useless and just whiny. Like, she's with her boyfriend and they're trying to escape their apartment, and she's like, oh, do we have to bring a gun? I hate guns. Girl, your boyfriend just said there's cannibals outside. You're gonna have to shoot them. They're driving a car. Oh, there's a starving kid on the road. Can we go help? No! Girl, that's how they get you to get out of the car. Then they drop a net on you. Then they take your kidneys. Do you not know nothing? Yeah, she was annoying, so I left out of there very fast. Oh, look, and I got another DNF'd. The Unbecoming of Mara Dyer. I have been told before that this book is very YA. It was very YA. It was trying to be too hip with the kids, you know. Maybe I'm just old now, but I don't even know what this book is about. Like, that's how early I DNF'd. All I remember is Mara Dyer. She went to her new school, I think. she met this one kid who's just like this ball of weird energy, and he just like talked, and I didn't understand a thing he said, and then I just left. I was done. Also, the love interest got introduced, and he was giving me super emo edgelord vibes, and usually I'm all for an edgelord. Talk to me about Murtaugh. Yes, I like that. But this guy was just too much. Too cringy. I was like, this ain't me, y'all. 10th Girl by Sarah something. This is another DNF. I tried 2 times to read this book. I'm gonna put it in between. It started off fine. It's this girl from overseas coming to Patagonia to like help run a finishing school for very fancy ladies. But this finishing school, it's haunted, so that's a bummer. So it's hard to keep, employees there. But hey, she's ready and willing. But then it skips into a different point of view, and this is like from the point of view of a ghost haunting the house, the finishing school, but she's also not a ghost. It sounds like she's from the future. So how is she haunting the house if she's not even alive yet to be dead yet? I don't know. But I was intrigued by that. I'm like, okay, I think that's cool. But I tried so hard to read this book. Twice I did. But I just could not understand what was happening. I did not get far into this book. I kept it for a while because I was like, maybe I'll understand it later. But it just never happened and I got rid of it. Next, we have The Lost Apothecary. This one, yes, right there. B tier. This book is split up into past and present timelines. In the past, we get the awesome history about this woman who's running a little apothecary in Old England, and this apothecary is exclusively for women to kill their husbands. Like, you need some poison, baby? Here you go. Put this in his pancakes, and you'll be getting that insurance money. That's dope. I love that. But the present timeline is like this researcher discovering the old apothecary that's just run down now, learning the history of it. I didn't care for that part at all. I just wanted to be in the past with the people like cooking up the potions and stuff like that. So you had me loving parts of this book and just bored throughout the rest of it. That's why it's like middle of the road B tier to me. And this is this one, Shadow Bright and Burning. This is a YA series I am very iffy about. I enjoyed reading it, but I don't remember a thing that happened in it. Actually, let's see. I have a strange relationship with this book series. I'm just gonna grab all the books and put them all in C tier right fast. Well, first off, what I do remember is that it had a beautiful love rectangle. I loved it. And what really sold me on this book is that it's a spin-off of the chosen one trope. Our main girl, has to pretend she's the chosen one, and she's not. And if it gets revealed she's not, she'll be killed. That is awesome. It has an amazing setup. Love the characters. And throughout this whole series, it made me laugh out loud. Like, I usually am not someone who laughs in books. Even if something funny happened, I'm just like, yeah, that was funny. But this one was fantastic. However, one thing that kept like ruining it for me is that important plot devices or like pieces of the plot would happen and it would come out of nowhere. But then I would remember, well, yeah, they mentioned it one time in one line, like 1,000 pages back. I'm like, was I really supposed to remember that? And that little one line would be something important in the next book. Actually, so it is a love rectangle. However, it has the childhood best friend who is like the primary love interest or like the first one. And he ain't nothing. Like, he's not given he's given a backstory and it's a cool backstory. But we're never with him. So I forget he exists all the time while I'm fawning over the other two in the love triangle. And I remember in the 3rd book, A Sorrow Fierce and Falling, like, our main character, like, in the video, she's like, did I tell you guys that I get visions now? And I'm like, where did that come from? I don't know how she did that. There are moments in the series where I'm just like, how the heck did it happen? Like, I read the 1st book, Shadow Bright and Burning, and they were fighting a big monster in the finale. And I don't know how they beat the monster, because it was weird. We were going like in and out of flashbacks, fighting this guy, fighting the monster, this guy, monster, and suddenly the monster's dead. I'm like, how did that happen? But it was still fun. I still loved the series. So that's why it's gonna stay in C tier, because I just don't want to touch it anymore until I'm ready to reread it. Ooh, next up. Very short book, but it's going right into A tier. Breach of Peace. Daniel Green. Good book. Loved it. It's about this police detective lady. She goes to this rich person's house, but rich person doesn't answer the door because the rich person is dead, mutilated, his ribcage cracked, his blood splattered, his skull shattered. He's dead. So she's got to figure out who killed this rich family. Very short book. It is so bloody. I loved it. Someone got a pistol shoved up their eye. I don't know how you do that, but I want to recreate it one day. Y'all will see me on the news. I would have loved to see more world building in this book to help explain some things, because it is a mystery too. Like, who killed all these people? And based on how it's written and what we don't know about the world till it's conveniently revealed at the twist, you can't guess who killed these people, even though I had my theories going on. So I felt dumb. I would have liked to see more world building, so I would have had more tools to help me solve the mystery, but it's also a short story. You can't pack a lot of world building into it. But anyways, very good book. Next up, we have a book that just not bamboozled me, it confuzzled me. It's going, ugh. Well, not as bad as the other Emily there. Okay, The Need. It's a very short book, so I can't say too much. It's about a mom. She loves her kids. She loves her job. She digs up fossils. She finds this big hole one day. She's digging in the big hole. She starts finding these like Mandela effect things. She finds like a coin with a different president's face on it. She finds a Bible with the pronouns for God being her instead of he. She finds like a little action figure of an astronaut, but the astronaut has a monkey tail. And finding all these other things at the bottom of this pit kind of leads to other things happening in her life. I don't know how. This book was too wordy for me. It's too sciencey. Maybe I'm just dumb. But I don't know why half the things happen in this book, and I don't get what the message was, besides motherly instincts being great. I read this book, and I know how it ends, but I do not know how it ends. I think someone fused together into another person, but I don't know. Also, someone had a bomb in this book, but I don't know how they had the bomb, if it exploded, why it exploded, who brought the bomb, why did they want it to explode, and who did it kill? But apparently it killed someone, because it's someone's motivation. But whose motivation? There's a lot going on. It's a hard book to explain, because I don't know what the heck happened. Next up, got The Bird Box. We're going to put that late C tier. As a premise, super interesting, but I was never scared in this book, because the monsters were never in it. You know, they're the monsters where you have to close your eyes. You see them, you go insane, you kill everybody around you. That sounds awesome. Would have been awesome if they'd been in the book more. This book is split up into a past and present timeline. In the past, we get the history about our main character chick, how she ended up taking care of these two kids that she obviously does not want to be taken care of. And that was interesting. That's the stuff I wanted to know, like how the world became in this state. But in the present timeline, our girl is just going down a river. So we get all these cool things happening just to be interrupted by, oh, and now I'm paddling on my left. Woohoo! What an adventure. Yeah, again, it's like I like half of it, but I hate the other half of it. Also, some of the sentences in this book were just weird. Like, they were structured in a weird way. Like, they made sense, but they were kind of like if Yoda was writing the book. Alright, and y'all remember how I loved Locke Lamora? Well, the sequel, Red Seas to Red Skies, it goes D tier right there. Y'all, you don't know how much this book wounded me. You don't. You don't know my pain. Well, first off, I think this book has 3 parts. I loved part 1. It was everything I wanted. It was building up, so it seemed like we had like 3 different types of adventure for Locke and John to go with. And it had a prologue that just like immediately hooked me, like, oh, I don't care if this book sucks. I have to stay, because this prologue like promises us a really intense scene that's going to happen later on in the book. Well, I read it and I wanted to DNF it, but I stuck with it. And that prologue clickbaited me. Like it's telling us we're going to have this, and it kind of does happen, but it's not what I thought was going to happen. I got clickbaited in a book. Again, first part, beautiful. But then we get to the second part, and we're just sailing. We're just sailing. We're talking to people. All the cool stuff that happened in part 1 is gone. Then we get to part 3. We're still sailing. Maybe some pirate fights. I don't remember. Maybe some love in the moonlight. I don't know. Then we finally get back to the place where all the cool stuff in part 1 was happening. And finally, all the cool stuff happens. So I just wanted part 1 and the very end of part 3 shoved into its own book. Everything else could just go. It was not that enjoyable for me because of all those parts I hated. However, the banter in this book The characters, they're always fantastic. There's more to this series that I have to read, but right now I'm taking a break because I did not like Red Seas under Red Skies. Next up, Followed by Frost. This is a book I read because I started doing things where I review books with covers I do not like, and this is the first one I did. It was just a little cute YA. It's very similar to Frozen. It has the same morals, really. It was just cute. I have nothing bad to say, but it wasn't like it blew me away. So we're just gonna put it there. Now we have a book that personally wounded me in so many ways. Survived the Night by Riley Sager, my favorite thriller author. This book was so bad. It just does not make logical sense. Let's see, I gave this book like a 1, but still better than Red Seas under Red Skies. This book, it stars a main character who immediately goes to the guy she already does not trust and tells him all of her weaknesses. Like, hey sir, I know we're driving in a car together for a very long road trip and I don't really know you that well, but you need to know I black out at like 5 minutes at a time. Don't hurt me, please, during those times. There was just so many vast leaps of logic with this girl in the book. She was not smart. Like, there's a time that she had a chance to escape the shady person in this book, and shady person was being shady, and shady person knew main girl character was onto him. So he was like, hey, if you don't want to be with me anymore, why don't you just leave? I can tell you, I'm making you uncomfortable for some reason. And our main character girl was like, no, I ain't leaving. You have to stay with me. Girl, that's not how thrillers work. You get a bad feeling about someone, you go the other way. So many times in this book, I was just like, that would not happen. No. It was a sad time for me. Then I read this other book called Rabbits. So this, if you don't know, Rabbits is a podcast. It's a nice podcast. I am not a good Audible listener. Like, you tell me something, I will forget it like 2 minutes later. So it was hard for me to listen to a podcast, but this one was still good. However, the book though, not my favorite thing. It had a lot in common with the podcast, because the podcast, it has to keep you entertained just like a book, and the way it would do that in the podcast would just have random events happen. Well, not random, but crazy things would happen out of nowhere, and the book would have the same thing. But with a book, I'm like, well, explain why that happened, please. Why is there an idol with a rabbit's head in front of me? Why is Slender Man in this book? There's just so much that wasn't explained, because this like touches on the topic of Mandela effects, alternate universes, all the cool stuff that I like, but never actually talks about them somehow. So I gave this a 2, I think. Yeah, right there is good enough for me. Now this book, The Echo Wife. This was just like a random library grab. I'm like, oh, I like the cover. Didn't even look at the back page. So I started reading it, and I'm like, oh my gosh, this is so sciencey. So I was like, I'm gonna hate this book. I'm gonna hate it. No, I love this book. This book was great. Made me feel smart for understanding what was happening. Our main character, she's a scientist lady. She does cloning experiments. It's very fascinating. But cloning is very sensitive subject in this world. So she can only work within certain parameters. She also has some husband drama going at home. Well, one day, something crazy happens. And it is a very short book, so I can't say more than that. But I loved it. It's very character driven. Like, most of this book, I'm not kidding, it's just this girl in a lab working. Nothing insane or exciting happening, but I loved every second of it because I liked the process of what she was doing, and also how she was equating what she was working on with what she was feeling in her head right now. I loved the book, and I would probably buy it so I could have it on my shelf. Well, here's another DNF. Before I Fall, again, 2 YA, very high school, oh my gosh, we have to try out for the cheerleading team. Oh my gosh, Becky's shoes are so ugly. Oh my gosh, boobs. Parties and alcohol, not my jam. Yeah, teenagers talk about that, but is that all I talk about? Shut up. I couldn't stand to last another second in there. Also, I looked up the summary for this, because I'm like, if someone posted the whole plot online, then I'll take that as a sign to stop reading it. So I read the plot. Something horrible happens to one of our characters. I didn't feel bad. I'm like, thank gosh. Now they're gone and they can't torment me anymore. Haha. I'm a horrible person. Books made me this way. Next up, we have The Tiger's Curse. My friend. She's like, when I was a young girl, this was my favorite series. Loved it. Loved the triangle. So I was like, oh, I'll read it. No, I did not like it. It is for a younger audience. In that way, it's everything is so convenient. Like, our main character girl, she wants to go to India, I think. And then this character just happens to appear like, oh, hello, young promising girl. You look like a reliable little chap. Here, would you like to accompany me to India? And boom, she's going to India. And her parents are totally fine with her going with this stranger to India. It's just stuff like that that just pops my little suspension of disbelief bubble. Ooh, okay. So, thing about me, probably know this, I hate magical realism. Metaphors. Just say what you mean. You don't have to make it all flowery. Just tell me what you want. So I picked up this book from the library because everybody was talking about it. I'm like, I will try to read this. But guess what? I ended up liking it. It was very good. I'm actually going to S tier with this one because it beat all the odds. I was set up to hate it, but I ended up loving it. It's about this guy. He's in this house. This house is infinite. So many rooms, like, it's infinite. And he's going around. He's counting the rooms. He's making maps. He's eating seaweed because half of the rooms in this house are submerged by the ocean. He also has this other guy living in the house with him, which is weird because it's an infinite house. It's very rare that two people are going to meet each other, but they do. And the guy is like, I'm here to find the secrets of the universe, which will give me godlike powers. And our sweet little innocent little boy, he found another person. He's like, I have no idea what you're talking about, but I will help you because I want a friend. I love this kid so much. And next up, speaking of someone I love so much, this is the Scorpio Races. Christy Luvis at Dostoevsky in Space, she loved this book and we were talking about it on a Discord. She's like, I love the Scorpio Races. So I picked it up and I liked it too. It's gonna go to a very high, you will put it in low A. It has carnivorous horses in it, blood, splattering the hot grains of a sandy beach. Loved it. People are on an island, and the main culture of their island is we do the Scorpio races, or seahorses, which are like horses that live in the sea, not like little fat noodle seahorses, you know. They race the evil carnivore horses, and it's dangerous, but it's thrilling, and it was fun watching these people live in this environment. But also the book is called the Scorpio Races, so I thought for a broad chunk of the book that it was gonna be for that chunk of the book the races, like it would last several days. That's how big the race was. No, the actual Scorpio race didn't happen till the very last chapter of the book, I feel like. And it wasn't even a race, it was a sprint. Like, you go from point A to point B, you're done in 30 seconds. All that anticipation building up in the book for 30 seconds. But that was really my only complaint. I just wanted more out of it. That's a good thing to complain about a book for. Just give me more. Why can't you do that? Write more books for me. The Wife Upstairs by Rachel Hawkins. I know this book is a retelling of something, like a thriller retelling, but I cannot remember what it is. I liked it. It wasn't that great, so I'm gonna put it in a low B. It's about this girl. She falls in love with this hunky man who nearly runs her over. You know, oh, I'm sorry for nearly splattering you on the asphalt. Hey baby, you're cute. Would you like some coffee? Yes, please. That's how people meet each other all the time. But turns out the guy that she likes, he's a little sketchy, but our main girl is a little sketchy herself. She's a ragster, better rags girl. She had nothing, now she kinda has a good job, but she sees this rich guy who ran her over, and she's like, I could get money from you. So she starts dating him, and she likes him, but she also likes his money. And we know that he wants something out of her, but we don't know what yet. And it's just like all these secrets. It's great. Towards the end of the book, there's an event that happens that wasn't really explained. Like, we were having an intense fight between two people, but this event interrupts them. And that's how the book kind of ends. And I'm like, how did that event happen? Who started it? Did they die? Who's actually alive in this book now? It has a kind of open end to it, but I just want to know, how that event happened. I can't tell you what the event is because it's a spoiler, but I'm like, was it purposeful? Or was it accidental? That's my main thing. And this is the latest book I read, Such a Quiet Place. This was a very bad thriller, but not as bad as the other Emily. We're gonna put it before it. It's another one of those neighborhood thrillers, like, oh, everybody's so close, but everybody has secrets. But this one, unlike The Therapist, which was dealing with the same kind of plot, and the same, big cast of characters, Such a Quiet Place wasn't good at giving those characters personalities. So when the villain was revealed amongst the neighbors, I didn't care because I didn't know them. And also it was a very slow paced book. And also the main character, she was nothing. In the review I did for this book, I called her like a pair of binoculars. Like all you're doing in her point of view is just picking her up and putting her on. And then we're just seeing what she's looking at. Like we get nothing from her as a person. Next up we have the Rook. Actually, I just have a ton of DNFs lined up real quick. The Rook, the Maze Runner, Sky Hunter, Emergency Contact. The Rook I DNF'd because it was a part of that, oh, this app is gonna pick a book for me video, and it picked a wrong book for me, because while it starts off interesting, like our girl, she has amnesia, she wakes up and she's standing in a field surrounded by corpses. Like, oh, did I do this? Who am I, by the way? Interesting. It's about our girl rediscovering who she is because she has amnesia. But I did not like the way she was rediscovering her memories. I cannot remember exactly how, but it's either like just obscenely long letters that she wrote to herself, or they were just really obnoxiously long flashbacks. I can't remember what it was, but there was something about this book I'm just like, no. The villain too, I was like, that's the villain right there. Easy to guess. The Maze Runner I DNF'd because it was annoying. All these people, so it's about this boy Thomas. He wakes up and he's in the maze. He's in the safe place of the maze where all the other boys are living. And all the boys are like, man, ever since you've been here, Thomas, you've changed things. Things are changing because of you, Thomas. It's like you're the chosen one, Thomas. Shut up. Thomas ain't that great, yo. All these characters just talking about how great Thomas is, how he's changing the world, he's revolutionizing the maze. I don't care. Also, I just always have an issue with characters named Thomas. It's a trend with me. They always manage to make me mad. Speaking of an author who wrote a bad character named Thomas, we have Sky Hunter by Mary Lou. Why did I DNF this? This is a book I actually forgot to mention in a wrap-up months ago. I had actually sworn, for some reason, never to read a Mary Lou book again, but then I saw this book at the library and didn't even look at the author name. I just picked it up and I'm like, ooh, pretty colors. And then when I got home, I saw the words Mary Lou and I'm like, oh dang. Because if you know me, you know I do not like the Legend series. But I do not actually remember why I DNF'd this book. I don't. I fail as a reviewer. Next we have Emergency Contact. Also something I DNF'd, even though it has a beautiful cover. Love it. If a contemporary does not capture my interest right away, I will DNF it so fast. I am willing for like a fantasy or a sci-fi or a thriller to stick with it for a longer time, but contemporaries, they just don't grip me. So I left that one very quickly. Next up, we have I Know Who You Are by Alice Finney. So I am so conflicted about this book. All throughout this book, it was S tier. I loved this thriller to pieces. Like, I had zero complaints. Loved the main character, loved her backstory. I loved what she was going through, her career, what she was feeling. So it is S tier. However, something towards the end of the book happens and it is very, very gross. Like, ugh. So I knocked it down from a 5-star to a 3-star. But I'm also like, was that justified? Because like, this gross thing, it happens in real life and it's not like it's a fault of the writer or the plot or the characters. Like, it's not really the book's fault. So I'm gonna stick it in A tier, because even though that thing that was introduced really freaked me out, was it a good freaking out? I don't know. It's just a weird thing to feel weird about, but just know it's a very good thriller. Loved it, except when it got gross. So it's staying in low A. Another thriller, but this one, it's a very cute thriller. It is called The Good Sister. We're gonna put this in low B. It's not a thriller. It's a kind of edgy contemporary. Like, there's no thrills, there's no scares, no suspense. But what it does have is the cutest couple I've ever seen. I've never wanted a ship to sail so fast as these two. They were just meant for each other, and I was rooting for them the whole time. The Secret History by Donna Tartt. Whew, that's a lot of book right there. It's a good book, but it's just a lot of book. I'm gonna put this A tier. Donna Tartt manages to pack so much into a single paragraph. I love her writing style, and I love how she writes main characters as totally morally gray. Like, there's good things about them, and then there's awful things about them. I love the settings that she puts up, and I liked, even though the main character in The Secret History wasn't anything cool, he reminds me of like a John Green character. He's semi-quirky and above average, but that's it. Seeing him interact with the group of weird college students he was hanging out with. That was cool. And what they were learning, what they were up to, that was great. Next, oh my gosh, y'all. The Only Good Indians. I was going to S tier immediately. When I picked this book up, I had no idea what it was about. If you don't know what it's about, I don't want to tell you what it's about. I want you to be as clueless as me when you picked up this book. Just know it is a bonkers. It's kind of random. It kind of ends badly. Oh, but it's amazing to read. It's so weird and I love it. Honestly, when I picked up this book, I thought it was like a contemporary / like a memoir, which is so wrong. All you need to know is that it's good. It's good. Part 2. Wow, part 2 of this book. That's just bananas right there. All right, next up, we have another DNF. This one's called Shade. Very nice cover. I'm a sucker for a black, white, and red cover. You know, words. But this book, besides me not connecting with the characters for like 250 pages, and I don't know who these characters are. There's just so much plot convenience in this book that I'm like, really? We're gonna let that slide. Like, the character is trapped in this situation, so something ridiculous would happen to get them out of it, or otherwise the book would just end right there. So I DNF'd out of that real fast. Next we have Beach Feed, another contemporary. It started off very good. I'm gonna put that in a nice B. It starts off with 2 authors who hate each other, and they're forced to be neighbors. That's pretty epic. They get into this contest. The girl author, who writes in women's fiction, and the boy author who writes in like literary fiction, they switch genres. He does women fiction, she does literary fiction. And they're like, oh, whoever like gets their book published first, like, I don't know, they win, and loser has to owe them an apology or something like that and endorse their next book. La 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 la. It was great. And of course, it's a romantic comedy. So they're gonna start to fall in love with each other. And that point is when it starts to become like a basic contemporary to me. But getting to that point, it was fun. I loved the setup to this book. But then it's just a regular contemporary throughout the rest of it then. And I finally read Stephen King for the first time this year. So we have Christine, which wasn't my favorite. I mean, it's just an evil car. It's not that scary. Get on a boat. That's how you escape it. Cars can't swim, dummies. But it was still fun to read. I like Stephen King's writing style a lot. But it was definitely different from The Shining. I'll talk about that later. I'm gonna put this, right behind Caraval. Also, you know how this, I don't think it's a spoiler. Everybody knows what this book's about probably. It's about a ghost car. Like, the ghost is possessed by a person. But is it possessed by a woman or by an old man? Because it seems like it's both. And it confuses me. Now we have The Shining by Stephen King, which is going right here. Let me put Ruth Square book. Rearrange that a bit there. This is the writing style I really liked. It's third person, but it's like the character would interrupt themselves when they're just like walking around. It's a very real way of writing how someone thinks. I'm not good at describing it, but I'm like, yeah, like this is how like a writer would write. I like that. I love the people in this book. I love the little kid. I can't remember his name. Is it Danny? I don't know. It was scary. I mean, yes, like most of the scary things in this book are like topiaries and sometimes like a fire hose. And you got Jack chasing people with a croquet mallet, I guess. Which all in all isn't scary, but Stephen King makes it scary. Y'all know what this book is about. Go read it. It's great. I really need to read the sequel. I'm gonna guess it's not as good as the first one, but I'm still intrigued. Next we have Winds of Strife. So one of my favorite tropes is when the character has like a internal alter ego, like another personality inside of them, a dark side. That's what I'm talking about. In this book, that's the only thing I really liked, the alter ego. I despise the main character in this book, and not like the good despise. I'm like, this guy is an abusive butthole, and he just needs to be flicked in the head by my fingernail. Just, ow. He's a jerk. I don't, like, it's the first book in the series, and I honestly don't see how this character is going to be redeemed unless it's by death, because he's not nice. Also, it was just like a bunch of exposition when I just wanted the evil shadow guy on the cover to just talk more. He was fun. I liked him. My best friend's exorcism. So I loved the Southern Book Club's Guide to Slaying Vampires. So I was excited to read my best friend's exorcism, especially because I love the cover. This was not my favorite thing ever. I'm gonna put it there. I've just realized I cannot deal with high school kids in books. I know some people are like, I can't read from a kid's point of view, like a 5-year-old's. Me, I'm like, I can't deal with a 15-year-old, apparently. And to me, the Southern Book Club's Guide to Slaying Vampires was very cheesy and self-aware in a way, but this book was too cheesy and self-aware. Actually, no, it's just cheesy. It wasn't self-aware at all. There was one very scary scene in this book. I'm not going to tell you what it's about, because you just need to stumble into it like I did, with no warning. But other than that, it's about an exorcism, but the ghost guy was never in the book, barely. 4 more left. House of Salt and Sorrows. I was just so mad about this book. I'm like, okay, there's so many sisters. Which one's which? Gonna put that there. I didn't get attached to the main girl at all. It's about these sisters who live on this island, and all these sisters, they just start dying, and all the village people are like, oh, we don't want to hang out with that family anymore. They're obviously cursed. All their daughters are dying. And all the daughters are like, well, we don't want to keep going to funerals. You think we're happy about this? We want to go out dancing. So they managed to find a way to start going to parties and stuff. And though I liked that the book incorporated monsters and gods into it, because that was great, it incorporated monsters and gods into it from seemingly nowhere, and they became very important very fast. I enjoyed them, but I was also confused by them at the same time. It's like they were introduced suddenly, but not introduced properly. And oh my gosh, Better Together, yeah, there it is. Low D tier. If you know who wrote this book, they also wrote Again But Better, which was awful in its own way. This book was so worse. It's just outrageous. It's so unbelievable in the worst possible way. The writing does not know how to make characters emote, so instead of having a character being upset, they just have the character throw up. Like, that's the only way they knew how to express emotion. Everyone was just so loud in this book, but they weren't really saying anything. And, this book is like trying to give like a good sisterly, like, morals. It's trying to teach sisterly morals, family morals. But I'm like, no, this family should not stay together. They are so toxic. So it taught all the wrong things in all the worst ways. It's a bad book. But it is not as bad as this book. Even If We Break was the worst thing to ever happen to me this year, and my mom had a stroke. Y'all, is that hyperbole? Probably. Even If We Break, I think it has like a 2-star on Goodreads. People don't like it, and if you read it, you would see why. It's 5 teenagers in a cabin in the woods. One of them dies. This friend group, they already hate each other to begin with, which was interesting. But then you realize, oh wait, I hate all of you too. You all suck. I hated the writing. I hated the characters. The plot was awful. So one person dies. We gotta find out who killed them, right? The person revealed was both so obvious and so random as the killer. Like, of course they're the villain, but why are they the villain? Their whole, like, motive is explained. I'm just like, no, that's not how normal people act. And this book, I read a lot of bad books. I mean, look at D tier right here. However, this book actually made me very angry. There was one comment towards an autistic girl in this book that I'm just like, someone needs to get slapped in the mouth, and it's probably the author. Oh my gosh. It was very, very bad. And finally, we're ending this on a good note. Anxious People, Frederick Bachman. Yes. This is one of those books, those rare books that made me laugh my booty off out loud. I loved it. It's about this bank robber. He fails at robbing a bank, so he runs into this apartment. It's unlocked. Well, because there's an apartment showing going on, so the bank robber ends up accidentally taking this whole apartment hostage. And all the people who came in to like view this open house, they're all idiots, just like the bank robber. And it's hilarious. I loved it. It was so funny. There's a rabbit in this book. The rabbit was the funniest thing to me. I loved him. And so guys, that is my tier ranking video. I had 7 5-star books. Is that good or bad? I feel like I'm too picky. I DNF a lot. I am not afraid to DNF, let me tell you that. So guys, what do you think of my list? What did I do wrong? What did I get right? Tell me what was your best and worst book this year. I loved talking about book gossip. Spill the tea. Pour the tea. Do whatever you want. Thank you guys so much for watching, and until next year, stay ready, my friends.